Most people think the most dangerous thing in processed food is sugar. Others blame seed oils, sodium, and preservatives. But what if the real danger is something that doesn't even exist until the food is cooked? Because every time certain foods are heated at high temperatures, a hidden chemical reaction begins. And the disturbing part is this: you will never see it listed on the label. Today, we're talking about one of the most overlooked chemical compounds in the modern food supply, and why researchers around the world have spent years studying its possible connection to nerve damage, DNA injury, and cancer risk. And if you regularly eat chips, fries, breakfast cereals, crackers, cookies, or even toasted foods, this absolutely affects you. Let's start with something simple. Most people think cooking just makes food hotter. But cooking is actually chemistry. The moment food hits high heat, molecules start changing shape. Proteins break apart. Sugars react. Oils oxidize. New compounds are created that did not exist before cooking started. Some are harmless. Some improve flavor. And some raise serious concerns among scientists. This is where it gets interesting. There's a specific reaction responsible for the crispy crust on bread, the golden color on fries, and the deep roasted flavor in many snack foods. Food companies love this reaction because it creates smell, texture, and taste. But under the wrong conditions, it also creates a compound called acrylamide. And most Americans have never heard of it. Acrylamide forms when three things come together: certain natural proteins, refined sugars, and high heat. That's the formula. If food is heated aggressively enough, especially during frying, roasting, or industrial baking, the reaction accelerates. And this is why ultra-processed foods become such a problem, because they are specifically engineered to go through these high-temperature manufacturing systems. Now, this doesn't mean every cooked meal is toxic. That's important. The goal here is not fear. The goal is understanding what modern food processing actually does to food before it reaches your plate. And here's the scary part. Acrylamide was first studied in industrial workers, not food. Researchers noticed people exposed to it in factories were developing neurological problems: numbness, weakness, nerve-related symptoms. That's when scientists realized this compound behaves like a neurotoxin. Later, researchers discovered the exact same chemical was forming inside common foods during cooking. That changed everything. Today, multiple international health agencies classify acrylamide as a probable human carcinogen, meaning there's enough concern that scientists take it very seriously, especially because once acrylamide enters the body, it can transform into another highly reactive compound that may damage cells and DNA even more aggressively. And most people consume small amounts of this stuff every single week without realizing it. Now let's talk about where it hides. Because this is where many viewers get surprised. The highest levels are usually found in foods that combine starch, processing, and intense heat. Things like potato chips, French fries, corn chips, crackers, pretzels, packaged cookies, commercial baked snacks, and many breakfast cereals, especially the crispy or puffed kinds. But here's something even more surprising. Coffee. Yes, coffee. And before you panic, stay with me because the details matter. Many people hear coffee contains acrylamide and immediately assume coffee is dangerous. But the science is more nuanced than that. And most headlines completely miss the full picture. This is where it gets fascinating. Light roast coffee often contains more acrylamide than dark roast coffee, which sounds backward. Most people assume darker roasting means more chemical damage. But acrylamide behaves differently. At very high roasting temperatures, the compound itself starts breaking down, meaning darker roasts may actually contain significantly lower levels than lighter roasts. So if you prefer espresso or dark roast coffee, you're likely reducing exposure compared to lighter roasts. That's an important distinction. Now let's talk about why modern processed food creates the perfect storm for this reaction. First, refined starches. When grains are stripped down into white flour, cornstarch, modified starches, or processed powders, the chemistry changes. These ingredients become far more reactive under heat. Second, industrial sugars. Not all sugars behave the same way during cooking. Highly processed sweeteners like glucose syrup, maltodextrin, dextrose, and high fructose corn syrup appear especially reactive during these high-temperature reactions. And third, the temperature itself. Once cooking temperatures climb high enough, especially during deep frying or industrial baking, the reaction speeds up dramatically. And most people don't realize this. The type of oil used during cooking may also matter. Certain oils are chemically unstable under extreme heat. When repeatedly heated, they break down more easily and create additional oxidation products. Historically, many traditional cooking fats were more heat-stable than modern industrial vegetable oils commonly used today, which means modern ultra-processed foods may expose the body to multiple layers of chemical stress at the same time. Now, I want to pause for a second, because this does not mean you need to fear every toasted piece of bread or every restaurant meal. Health is about patterns, not perfection. What matters most is cumulative exposure over the years. And unfortunately, modern diets are increasingly built around foods most likely to generate these compounds. That's the bigger issue. This is where it gets serious. Many children and adults now get a huge percentage of their daily calories from ultra-processed foods. Not whole foods, not fresh meals. Factory-produced products designed for shelf life, crunch, flavor intensity, and convenience. Which means many people are repeatedly exposed to high-temperature processed foods for breakfast all the way to late-night snacks, day after day, year after year. So what can you actually do about it? Thankfully, a lot. And the solutions are surprisingly practical. First, reduce how often foods become heavily browned or burned. Dark, crispy surfaces usually signal more intense chemical reactions. Golden is generally better than dark brown or blackened. Second, use gentler cooking methods more often. Slow cooking, steaming, boiling, poaching, lower temperature baking. These methods dramatically reduce the formation of harmful heat-related compounds. Third, prioritize real foods over ultra-processed products. Vegetables, beans, whole grains, fresh proteins. Foods closer to their natural state generally go through fewer destructive chemical changes. And here's something most people don't know. Certain foods may actually help the body defend itself against these compounds. This area of research is growing rapidly. Cruciferous vegetables, like broccoli, kale, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, and arugula, contain natural sulfur compounds that support the body's detoxification systems. Garlic and onions contain protective plant chemicals linked to cellular defense mechanisms. Vitamin C-rich foods help reduce oxidative stress. Fermented foods may support gut health and elimination pathways. Green tea contains antioxidant compounds studied for their protective effects against cellular damage. So pairing processed foods with protective whole foods may help reduce some of the biological stress, not eliminate it, but it potentially reduces the impact. And this is the key message I want you to remember. The biggest dangers in the food supply are not always printed on the package. Sometimes the real issue is what happens during processing itself. The chemistry created by high heat, refined ingredients, and industrial manufacturing. That invisible layer of food science is something most consumers never think about, but your body responds to it every single day. Now here's the good news. Small changes matter. You do not need a perfect diet. You do not need to panic over every meal. But reducing ultra-processed foods, cooking more gently, and eating more protective whole foods can meaningfully lower long-term exposure. And over years, those decisions add up. Because chronic disease rarely appears overnight. It builds slowly through repeated patterns, repeated inflammation, repeated stress, repeated exposure. That's why awareness matters, not fear. Awareness. If this video helped you understand your food differently, subscribe for more simple, science-based health videos designed to help you protect your brain, body, and long-term health. And share this with someone who still thinks processed food is only about calories and sugar. Because what happens to food before it reaches your plate matters far more than most people realize. This content is for informational purposes only and is not medical advice. Consult a qualified healthcare professional for any health concerns.